Okay, so let's talk about an intruder. I mean, one that's so small you can't see it at all, but it's so powerful it can bring the most advanced defense system in the world. Yep, the human immune system to its knees. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a master cellular hijacker, the human immunodeficiency virus. You know it is HIV. So, this is it. This is our antagonist, up close and personal. What you're looking at is its basic structure. See that outer layer? That's a lipid envelope, and it's studded with these proteins that are basically microscopic keys, perfectly designed to pick the locks on our own cells. And deep down inside the core, that's where it keeps its genetic blueprint. But here's the twist. It's not DNA, it's RNA. And right alongside it is its secret weapon, this little enzyme called reverse transcriptase. Now remember that name, because it is absolutely crucial to how this whole thing works. All right, that brings us to Act 1, the invasion. We're going to look at just how this tiny intruder gets into the body and what makes it so incredibly dangerous. Now, here's the thing about HIV. It's not your average virus. It belongs to this special club called retroviruses. So what does that even mean? Well, think about it like this. Almost all life, including us, follows one main rule. DNA makes RNA. It's a one-way street. But retroviruses, they completely flip the script. Using that secret weapon we just talked about, reverse transcriptase, they can rewrite their own RNA backwards into DNA. It's kind of like they can translate their own software to run on our hardware. It's sneaky. And what specific hardware is it after? Well, it goes straight for the top. We're talking about the CD4 T cell. The best way to think about your immune system is like a really well-organized army, right? Well, the CD4 cell, that's the general. It's the command and control center that tells everyone else what to do. And that is what makes HIV so absolutely devastating. It doesn't bother with the foot soldiers, it goes straight for the leadership to decapitate the entire defense. So how does this invasion even start? I mean, the virus has to get in somehow. As you can see here, there are basically four main ways this happens. By far the most common is through sexual contact. That accounts for a huge majority of cases. But you've also got other major routes like blood transfusions, which, wow, have a 90 to 95% risk of transmission, sharing of needles, and also from a mother to her child during pregnancy or birth. Okay, so once the virus is inside, we move on to Act 2, the takeover. And this is where things get really wild. We're about to see the incredibly clever and totally devastating way it hijacks our own immune cells and turns them against us. This whole takeover, it's a super methodical 5-step heist. First up, you've got fusion. That's where the virus docks onto and gets inside a CD4 cell. Step 2 is reverse transcription. That's when it uses its secret weapon to turn its RNA into DNA. Now, step 3, integration. This is the real point of no return. The virus literally stitches its own DNA right into our cell's DNA. From there, it's easy. Step 4 is replication. The hijacked cell has no choice but to start churning out new virus parts. And finally, step 5, assembly and release, where brand new viruses are put together and burst out, ready to go infect a whole lot more cells. So what happens when this 5-step process goes on and on? Well, this graph tells the whole story. It's basically a picture of the war happening inside the body. That red line, that's the viral load. So how much HIV is in the blood. See how it just skyrockets right after infection? And the blue line, that's our army of CD4 cells, our generals. And you can see it plain as day. It's a perfect inverse relationship. As the red line of the virus goes up, the blue line of our immune cells just plummets. You know, this whole battle plays out over 3 pretty distinct stages, assuming there's no treatment. First, right at the beginning, you have the primary infection. It can last a few weeks, and honestly, it often just feels like a really bad flu. Then, things go quiet, for years even. This is called clinical latency. The person might feel totally fine, no symptoms at all, but under the surface, the virus is still active, just reproducing at low levels, and that CD4 count is slowly, silently dropping. And then, usually after a decade or more, the immune system is so badly damaged that the body enters the final stage, AIDS. So let's be super clear about what AIDS actually is. It's not the virus itself. AIDS, acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, is the condition that happens after HIV has wrecked the immune system. A person is diagnosed with AIDS when their CD4 cell count drops below a critical number, 200. Or, and this is important, when they start getting what are called opportunistic infections. These are things like rare cancers or pneumonias that a healthy immune system would just laugh at, but a weakened one just can't fight off. But, and this is a huge but, the story does not end in defeat. Not at all. And that brings us to Act 3, the fight back.
This is where science and medicine step into the ring, ready to take on this hijacker with some incredibly clever strategies of their own. The first rule of any fight is you have to know your enemy is there. So how on earth do you find this microscopic intruder, especially in the early days when it's basically in stealth mode?
Well, it all comes down to something called the window period. That's just the time between getting infected and a test being able to actually find it. And different tests look for different clues, so they work on different timelines. Really sensitive tests can spot the virus's actual genetic material, its RNA, in just 10 to 14 days. A little later, they can detect a piece of the virus itself, a protein called the P24 antigen. And then finally, anywhere from 3 to 12 weeks later, our own body has made enough antibodies against the virus for the standard tests to pick them up.
Okay, so once a diagnosis is made, science can bring out the big guns. And I mean the single biggest game changer in this entire story, antiretroviral therapy. You'll hear it called ART. So what is ART trying to do? Well, the goals are really clear and really powerful. Number one, obviously, is to prolong life and make that life better. How do you do that? By knocking the viral load down as far as you can, and just as important, keeping it down. When you suppress the virus like that, the immune system finally gets a chance to rebuild itself. And there's another amazing benefit. It massively, and I mean massively, reduces the risk of passing the virus on to someone else. So how is ART so darn effective? Well, it uses what's famously known as the cocktail approach. See, HIV is really good at mutating and outsmarting a single drug. So instead of one, we hit it with a combination of drugs that all attack different parts of its life cycle. It just overwhelms it. For example, some drugs jam up that reverse transcriptase enzyme we talked about. Others, called protease inhibitors, mess up the assembly line for new viruses. And integrase inhibitors, well, they block that critical step where the virus tries to integrate into our DNA. It's a full-on, multi-front war. And this whole scientific strategy, it has had an absolutely profound impact. So for our final act, let's zoom out a bit and see where this battle stands today on a global scale. And make no mistake, this scale of this fight is still immense. The data we have here from the end of 2018 showed an estimated 37.9 million people living with HIV worldwide. That's not just a number, This isn't just a story about a virus. It's a massive, ongoing human story. So, to try and get a handle on the global epidemic, UNAIDS set this really ambitious goal called 90-90-90. The idea was simple. Get 90% of people with HIV diagnosed, get 90% of them on treatment, and get 90% of them virally suppressed. This chart here gives you a snapshot of where things stood back in 2016. And you can see, the world was making some amazing progress, but there was still a ways to go to hit that 90% target across the board. And this brings us to probably the most important thing to understand about treatment. And this quote says it all. The drugs do not kill or cure the virus. ART is all about suppression, maximum suppression. What that means is the treatment is lifelong. The hijacker is in chains, absolutely, but it hasn't been executed. It's all about control, not a cure, at least not yet. So where does that leave us? Modern medicine has pulled off an absolute miracle here, turning what was a death sentence into a manageable chronic condition. It's incredible. But the hijacker is still in there. Its code is now a permanent part of the body's own cells. A true cure is still out of reach. And that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? What's it going to take to win this final battle and to finally evict this intruder once and for all?